next speaker, Dr. Bhuva Nararyan. I would like to invite Dr. Bhuva Nararyan. Bhuva Nararyan is currently the director of PhD program at the School of Communication at the University of Technology, Sydney. Previously, she was the program coordinator for the school's information and knowledge management program for over 5 years. Dr. Narayan came to library science via the book industry in India and then the editing and publishing industry in the United States. She completed an undergraduate degree in English literature from Nagarjuna University, a master degree in library and information science from the I School at University of Pittsburgh, and a diploma in publishing from Harvard University before moving to Australia, where she earned a PhD in information science. Dr. Narayan is the chair of Research Advisory Committee for the Australian Library and Information Association and an associate editor at the Journal of the Australian Library and Information Association. Thank you, Dr. Bhuva Nararyan, to be with us, and I just would like to request you to just deliver your talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me, Dr. Narshad Ali and Dr. Lakshman Rao. Thanks very much. So yes, I was introduced already. So my name is Bhuva Nararyan. I have never been involved with the library world in India, so I actually don't know anything about the library industry and the library education in India. But, and neither have I been involved with the library world in the United States. I was a library science student there and then came to Australia to do a PhD, and I have been very deeply involved in the library world in Australia, both as an educator and as a researcher. So I will talk from that viewpoint today. So because I have designed courses in Australia, I've delivered courses, I've delivered curriculum, and I have been involved in the national landscape in re-envisioning the sort of education, library education here. So, somebody else's screen is coming here, okay. I work at the School of Communication, and the library program sits in there within the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. And for various different reasons, you will see that I will explain soon, our library program does not exist anymore as a library program. It has been dissolved into various other programs. So, and I'll sort of talk about the journey of our program and the Australian programs in general, more as a warning for maybe other countries. It's not a good story here at the moment, but maybe some other people can take some lessons from what has happened here. It doesn't let me advance the slide. Okay, there it is. So this is our university, and that's our new library. We do have a very, very fancy new library, which is wonderful. And it's envisioned more as a place. It is one of the first academic university libraries in Australia to allow the public to come in, like as a public library. We have one whole floor that now functions like a public library in order to get the public interested in the university. And since we sit inside a very busy city, we don't have a campus. So we actually have about 26 buildings spread across various different 6 blocks across the city. And we have about 45,000 students, and in order to save space, we decided not, some universities got rid of their books, like hard copy books across Australia because of space, but we didn't. We decided to build a 7-story underground building below the green space you see in this photo in order to store our books. And we used a system called Library Retrieval System. It stores about 1 million books. At the moment, we have about 50,000 books in there, and it's robotic retrieval through a crane. and all the books are tagged with RFID, so there is no need to use any other system in order to retrieve the books. So that's sort of the context of the library that I am working with. I don't work in the library, I'm an academic, but all of my graduates are working there. After they graduate, many of them do work in the library. But in coming back to the Australian LIS education sort of landscape, we do need accreditation in order to teach the library science course, or else it's not really recognized by the employers or by the industry professionals anyway. So when I first came to Australia in 2006, we had 15 universities offering LIS courses and degrees. We have both undergraduate courses and postgraduate courses traditionally. That has always been the case here. But now, today, I have 5 universities offering LIS courses, which means 10 universities have shut down in the last 10 years. Not universities, the courses, the library information science courses in universities have shut down. And even the 5 that are left, 2 of them are phasing out, as means they're not taking any more students. They're just finishing teaching the ones that are existing. And there's only 1 undergraduate course left. And it's one of the largest courses in Australia, but that's all there is left. Some of the other stakeholders in our landscape here is the Records and Information Management Professionals Australasia, because many of our courses also teach records management. And then the Australian Society of Archivists, some of our courses teach archiving and things like that. And then we have the Health Libraries Association Australia, which is a sub-association of ALIA, that is the Australian Library and Information Association. And also the Australian School Library Association, which is a separate association. One of the reasons the ALIA doesn't have much to do with them is because they have their own qualifications that each state has their, often to become a school librarian, they have a master's in education plus a master's in library science. So those, we don't have much data because every state is different, and the way the private schools will take people without qualifications, whereas the public system does need the ALIA accredited qualification and things like that. There's a lot of variation there. So one of the reasons why we are at this sort of a sad stage here at the moment is because a lot of the previously independent library information schools were sort of merged into larger academic units within their parent institutions with other information fields, because the executives and the managers don't care. They think information science, library science, yes, it can go into information fields such as computer science, information technology, information science, business, especially business information systems, communications, etc. So once we go into a larger, bigger academic unit, we slowly sort of get absorbed, or we need to teach their subjects, but they cannot teach our subjects. And slowly the library information science academics have gotten absorbed into other faculty, and they are teaching into other courses, not necessarily library information science courses. Especially since the library information science educators are quite versatile and have a background in many other disciplines, they are able to do this. So that's sort of what's happening with us also. I teach mostly cross-disciplinary electives now. I don't teach in the library information science anymore. And the other problem we have in Australia, and possibly in some other countries too, is the stratification of the workforce through different levels of education, because we have the diploma in library science, undergraduate degree, and then the master's degree. We also have the technical qualifications we call, which is the vocational qualification to become to work in a library, but not to become a librarian. So there was all these levels and hierarchies that were set in place. And then with the libraries also, there were academic libraries and public libraries, law libraries, health libraries, school libraries, but they had all different pathways, and also the special information services within industry. The program that I teach into specializes in producing graduates who go into the information management and knowledge management industry. They don't necessarily typically work in libraries. They go into KPMG or Ernst & Young and become information analysts. But the problem was that all of these were seen as separate pathways and separate professions and not necessarily connected to one umbrella of library information science education. So each went their own way and did their own things, and in the end, some of them just sort of died out and couldn't be integrated back into the sort of umbrella of library and information science. And the other problem we have had is the academization of library education and the educators like myself. What I mean by that is that we have, tremendous pressure to be, once we are, let's say, librarians and library science educators, but we are sitting within a university which has a certain type of workload model where all of us are expected to publish a certain number of papers every year. Whether you're a library science educator or science educator or academic, it's all the same. So the publication pressures put on library science academics eventually makes them into researchers and distances them away from the practice. They don't have time to keep in touch with practice. They don't have time to be talking and working with library practitioners, for example. So the relationships have changed, and so the lack of collaborative research, the lack of evidence-based practice. So what that means, that relationship sort of breaking down means that librarians don't care about our research anymore. So they're not using evidence-based practice, at least from their own programs even, for example. And then the researchers like me lose the practice-based evidence, lose the evidence coming from libraries, from their actual, practice and what's happening, and there's no collaboration left. So that has been a problem. And then there is a tension between let's say the high school students or the undergraduates who want to do the library science come focused on what can I do after this rather than what can I learn. So rather than learning to be, they are highly focused, and that's partly the university sort of marketing mechanism that goes into place. You come here to do this degree to get this job kind of thing. Although not everybody wants to be a librarian, and we need to understand that, but the librarianship and the information science knowledge that we can impart is useful in many different professions, including in the government, and especially within Australia, they have a digital 2020 transformation for the government in which a lot of our skills and knowledge could be used, but that wasn't really targeted in their advertising, for example. So this affects, it's a catch-22 situation where it affects the curriculum. So we start teaching things that are more very applicable in the real world, but not necessarily nurturing long-term growth in our field, in our concepts, in our theories, for the future. So there was no really succession planning for LIS academics either. So in a way, if you don't have future LIS academics, then who are you going to learn from if you want to be a librarian in the future? The library professionals are not going to be teaching future librarians. They do teach on the job, but that's not their job. So recently, the Australian Library Information Association, just in May, released a report which you can access from the link there on top. future of LIS education, the future of library and information science education in Australia. It was a discussion paper. And it was post-COVID, so it included those implications on there. So I'll just sort of sum up a little bit of that. What they have found is that there's not enough exchange between academics, researchers, and employers to expand the reach and impact of LIS research and maximize the return from the available funding. So again, it comes down to funding, but then the return from available funding, as far as universities are concerned, in Australia, they call it bums on seats. How many students do we have every year? So in a university like my university, which has 45,000 students and thousands of staff and academics to support those students, in the library information program, at any given time, there were no more than 60 students, right? So the university does not value that program as they don't look at what is the value for society, what is the value for succession planning, what is the value for universities at large. They just look at their figures and then they say 60 students and you have 5 academics. I'm paying full professor salary for 5 academics to teach 60 students a year. Sorry, not possible. I cannot make a business case for that. And that's how we went. And the other problem is that was identified in this discussion paper was the watering down of the profession. And what I mean by that is lots of universities and public libraries, university libraries and public libraries started hiring people without any qualifications at the entry level, in like customer service level, information service, not information services, but customer service on the floor, and so on. But these people then start working in the library and they learn and they just build up their profession in the library, but they don't have any library qualifications. On the other hand, public libraries and university libraries were hiring top-level managers who had absolutely no experience in libraries or library science to come and run their business. As they were MBAs and business managers generally, with absolutely no clue of librarianship or library science or the societal and public service sort of aspects of libraries at all. So in a way, the librarians got caught up in the middle of this, people coming from the outside on the top level, people coming from the outside at the bottom level, and the librarians being stuck in the middle without any future growth, and then no new librarians coming in too. So that's happened quite a lot in Australia. So this shows you a sort of the employment figures in any given sort of a university. This is the average figures, of course. So on the left, you have 22% of our library workers are not qualified for libraries. And the 30% are library technicians, as in they're not librarians. They've been trained in 1 or 2 or 3 different things to work in the back end of the library. They're not front-facing librarians working with academics or public or anything like that. And the librarians are only 36%. And then the senior team is 12%, which is they don't have library qualifications either. So what the report found was that in terms of the scope for the profession, we need to think of our core business of operating libraries and information services, which is there, but we need to also work with the other people that are involved in our profession. In Australia, we call it the GLAM professions, which is the galleries, libraries, archives, museums, because they need the same kind of training that librarians get. The archives and records, the marketing and project management, business and facilities management. We all, librarians and libraries, work with these people. Of course, IT and education is an essential part of that. But we don't always consider this in our education when we are training people to become librarians. So in the report, their recommendation was that we need to be including these things in the list, the data using we need to be teaching this in LIS education. How do we use business intelligence tools to inform practice around collection systems, large data sets, and more and more inclusion in gender diversity in the workforce, social inclusion in the services, and also in Australia, specifically Indigenous matters, and also ethics around collecting, what to collect and what not to collect, and what belongs to who. And then also the digital sort of aspects that everyone else has spoken about today, including Christine and Shajaj. So, and data science is becoming an increasingly important area for library, not just to teach, but to use. And the digital economy, and then also the soft skills of negotiating. I mean, most of the skills that I use now is negotiating with management about what I can teach or what I can keep, and there's a lot of those thick skills involved, and my own library science degree did not teach me all those things. And of course, project management, budgeting. So not a lot of library schools are teaching you how to do your budgeting for your library, for example. My school at Pittsburgh did teach me. I had a special course on library budgeting. And of course, teaching. All of my graduates are going into academic libraries as librarians, and next thing they know, they are doing information literacy classes for undergraduates and honor students and researchers, but they have never been taught how to teach a class. So we need to include teaching and coaching and presenting skills as part of library education. And also to be, sort of having people who want to learn, lifelong learning is one of those things that it's not the end of the degree that you have a library degree and then go off and become a librarian, but rather, to keep with the changes happening in the world every day. Doing all of that requires the lifelong learning skills while still retaining the ethics and values and principles of being a library and information professional. These are the ones the study found, but what I would like to add to this, to finish up my talk, is, of course, we need to be teaching future librarians how to support a virtual campus. I'm sitting here all day teaching online from the study in my house. My library school is not teaching. My librarians are not supporting me in this. They do not know how to support me in this. They can tell me certain things, but not everything I need to know. Librarians need to be involved with creating open educational resources. And for that, they need media training too. Do we train our library students in media and communications? How to make a video, how to make a video to explain library services, or, how to make a video to show people how to use a certain software or bibliometric database. And also, do we teach them how to support community members, senior citizens, and doing some sort of service learning, like where there's a unit where a student goes and does something in the community, maybe goes to a public library, teaches computer classes to senior citizens. That could be part of their learning unit. And also, how to include digital access and virtual assistants in their training, whether it's Alexa or voice bots and things like that. And also supporting young citizens with could we have virtual storytelling sessions for, children who are not able to come to public libraries anymore, for example. And also, more importantly, scholarly communication services, sort of teaching the researchers in their universities and elsewhere about open access publishing, which I call research literacy, teaching them about research metrics, teaching researchers about bibliometrics, and educating researchers. That is the librarian's job, but they're not trained to do that at all. So, and also none of these can be possible if the library students and library professionals also don't do that. They need to do their own research to understand how research is done. That's how they can actually collaborate with researchers. So I think we need to start early by encouraging LIS students to publish even when they're students, so that they understand the difference between research support services and research practice. So I think I'll be done at this time. So yeah. So what I do in my role as the chair of the ALIA Research Advisory Committee is I promote researcher practitioner collaboration through small grants, but also to sort of increase their chances of getting a national grant, which is quite a big grant. But only 3 national level large grants have come to LIS in the past 10 years. Which is not a lot, because there's quite a lot of other disciplines that get quite a lot of other money from the government for research. So that's it from me. I will stop sharing my screen. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Dr. Bhuva Nararyan, I have a couple of comments. You may answer with that.
Yeah.
Now, as per the conditions that are prevailing in Australia, it indicates that the profession is going into danger zone. The reason is and 65% of the library professionals are non-professionals, just maybe trained little. So this gives an indication to every country, especially library schools, that we must be ready to modify our curriculum so that our people not only work in the library, but also take up different jobs. Like in Western countries, they take care of the giving the soft skills. Then also they also give a facility for employment, those who are seeking for the employment, etc. And the library science, it's a direct indication that curriculum needs to be drastically changed without any hesitation. And as it is, at least in India, we are lucky. Non-professional or untrained people are not taken as librarians. But I think probably already the administrators are thinking that we don't need the library, Google is enough. This is unfortunately a feeling by most of the top academic administrators.
Yeah, we have the same problem.
Yeah, your talk gave us a signal that the librarians, libraries and schools especially must think seriously how we will be able to sort out, how we will be able to move forward in the in such a condition if it comes to other countries, if it reaches to other countries. So that's how it's. Thank you very much for your wonderful talk, and it gave us lots of challenges. It has thrown a lot of challenges to the professionals and also libraries and schools. Thank you very much for your talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was nice talk.